There's a sutra that I'd like to start out with from the Number Discourses, 2.3. And the Buddha said, "Mendicants, I say that these two people cannot easily be repaid." What two? Mother and father. You would not have done enough to repay your mother and father, even if you were to carry your mother around on one shoulder and your father on the other, and if you live like this for 100 years. And if you were to anoint, massage, bathe, and rub them, and even if they were to defecate and urinate right there, even if you were to establish your mother and father as supreme monarchs of this great earth, abounding in the seven treasures, you would still not have done enough to repay them. Why is that? Parents are very helpful to their children. They raise them, nurture them, and show them the world. But you have done enough, more than enough, to repay them if you encourage, settle, and ground unfaithful parents in faith, unethical parents in ethical conduct, stingy parents in generosity, or ignorant parents in wisdom. So this sutra has been on my mind for a few reasons. I returned about a month ago now from a visit with my parents in Sydney, Australia. And I mentally prepared myself for the visit. I haven't been back to Australia since November 2017, so about 8 years. They've come to a few times to the States to see here, which has been wonderful. And during those visits, there were various joys and difficulties, so I learned a lot in that. And so when I went to Australia, I kind of tried to prepare myself in terms of being flexible and other focused and trying to be relaxed and not goal orientated. It would be great. And it was really good. It was just nice to be in the same room because I haven't lived in the same country as my parents for about 15 years. So there's been lots of meetings online. And so, yeah, just happy to be in the same room. And then there was a feeling of being a fish out of water because I was back in the family home with their schedule flowing, and I could just see that I wasn't at ease with myself, and there was various senses of obligations or expectations that I started noticing creeping in. Obligations because my parents funded the ticket for me to go see them in Sydney, so I felt like I had to make myself really available and to deliver what I don't know. But I could see, like, it doesn't make sense, but I could just see the misconceptions arising as things were unfolding, and expectations as well, like expecting myself that I wouldn't get triggered by old things. It's like, the buttons are still there. I don't react the same way, but there's still buttons. And also the expectation that they would take an interest in what I'm doing here. And I've seen that they fully support me so much, but as in terms of interest in what my spirituality or what we do here, aside from construction, my dad's in construction, so the Buddha hole is a great topic. But in terms of asking me questions, no. And I've sat with that and understood it, and then I could still see that wish for the interest to be there. So it's just interesting to notice my disappointment and just this self-centered mind that has unrealistic expectations, and I create my own misery around that. And also what I see is a ongoing rule of the universe that gets repeatedly broken every day of this should be easy. And it's not. Samsara is not easy. And there was one particular moment that was very helpful for me where I was sitting on the couch and they were doing their thing, and I could just sense like my mind is unhappy right now. And it was so clear of like, and I'm doing this to myself. Like and I'm doing this to myself. Like I knew that I wasn't pointing the finger, but I could just recognize the discontent, as Venerable Chuni very eloquently described yesterday as the disadvantages of samsara, that my mind was discontent with how things were and I was unhappy. And I was able to just sit with that in that moment and not let it come out of my mouth or hopefully out of any other behaviors, and recognize that I could make myself happy if I wanted to in that moment and shift and then be of much benefit to my parents there when I was with them. Yeah. And so just it was helpful in that situation to work with my expectations around, I'd like to connect with my blood family as I do with my spiritual chosen family here. And it's just an unrealistic expectation because there's not the shared interests or worldview and that's not a problem. It's only me that makes it into a problem. Yeah, and so just this ongoing recalibration of expectations. Yeah, and it was very interesting in a Tibetan class a week or two ago. We were introducing ourselves, and I was being asked about my family. And I mentioned the recent trip home and mentioned, I was, that I think she was asking about how my parents relate to what I'm doing. I said, well, they don't ask questions about what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. And then the person misunderstood what I said and said, oh, I don't try and ask them questions about what I'm doing. Oh, she goes, that's very, very skillful of you not to try and impose on them things that they're not interested in. And I'm like, that would be skillful. So okay, it was, yes, I'm seeing that very clearly. And there was a point in my Anagarika year where I first started to understand this, where I had been calling them, every 10 days we get to call. So I would call, and I would try and share what we're doing, and would kind of fall flat, and I would zone out when things about coffee and cake and different things that I wasn't interested were being talked about. And I think at one point I was like checking my email or doing something while they were talking, and I'm like, wait, this is not the purpose of connecting. It's like, if you're here to connect. Like, don't half do it. Yeah. So that was very clear. And there were ways to connect on a level that worked for both of us. So when I started describing, cooking for 30 people in the kitchen, or different things about construction, or doing the prison project, there was different ways to connect that we could meet in the middle. That was actually skillful. Yeah. And this ongoing shift as I see more and more the depth of my self-centeredness around this shift from not from what can I receive, but what can I give. And it is not, there's layers to that. And it's very humbling. And coming back to the sutra that I started with, there's this deep wish to be of benefit to my parents, but it's meeting them where they are. But for, during this exploring monastic life course, it's like, we go forth, but as we don't lose our families. We're still in this ongoing relationship to them. And to really see, no matter what way we are relating to our parents, but in the bigger picture, our ordination is the best way to repay the kindness of our parents. And this is very clearly outlined in the ordination ceremony. Oh no, it's not moving. I'll read a bit from the ordination ceremony that highlights how ordination repays the kindness. And this is the section of leaving the family and renouncing worldly ties. And this is the advice that's given before the person going forth goes to bow to, there's like blocks that have the parents' names on them, and you bow 3 times out of gratitude for all they've given and saying thank you, and then basically going forth and leaving. And so the acharya, the person who's guiding you through the ceremony, says, child of a good family, you will now have your head shaved and leave your family. You should generate an expansive mind. First, look up to the Buddha as an exemplar and proceed on the Buddha's path. Then regard sentient beings and educate them. If you practice like this, the Buddhas will descend, bless you, and cause Dharma nectar to flow into your mind so that you will have the seed of awakening forever. Practice diligently. Leave behind mundane worries. Dedicate the good deeds of bowing and doing recitations to your parents. Repay the kindness of your country by means of the merit, practice, created by practicing. For this reason, the Sutra on giving the going forth to upasakas says, transmigrating within the three realms, one is not able to cut off attachment and bonds. Give up attachment and enter nirvana. That is the true repayment of kindness to your parents, teachers, relatives, friends, fellow citizens of the planet, and all sentient beings. So going forth, giving up attachment and entering nirvana, that's the true way to repay kindness. And I find the chanting from the ordination ceremony incredibly beautiful. So Venerable Samton and Semke are primed to lead this chant 3 times. And
transmigrating in the three realms, one is not able to sever attachment. Give up attachment and enter nirvana. That is the true way to repay kindness. Transmigrating in the three realms, one is not able to sever attachment. Give up attachment and enter nirvana. That is the true way to repay kindness. Transmigrating in the three realms, one is not able to sever attachment. Give up attachment and enter nirvana. That is the true way to repay kindness.
In that line of, why is ordination the best way to repay the kindness of our parents? Because through our practice, we will slowly be able to lead them to lasting peace and happiness themselves. Because I can see right now, and through my latest trip, it's like I barely have the ability to keep my own mind happy. But through my practice, I will learn how to do that myself and then be able to show that to others. And ordination is such a conducive circumstance to be able to do the inner work, to generate the merit, to do the purification, to be able to purify the mind of afflictions, to cultivate the good qualities, that then I can be of long-term benefit to those who have shown me so much kindness in this life. And when I was in Australia, I had the opportunity to go to a talk by Ajahn Sujato, a Theravada monk who lives in Sydney. And at the beginning of the talk, or at the beginning, he asked, what should I talk on? And I said, the relationship with parents, because that's what was alive for me. And it was interesting. He goes, oh, I thought you'd say something easy, not that. Something like dependent arising. But he obliged, and he's translated the whole Pali Canon and done like a 3-year retreat while he does that. So his knowledge of the sutras is just extensive. And so his talk went in a number of interesting directions. But one thing that really stuck with me was how he described that in the scriptures, it describes that when the Buddha left home, when he left the palace and went out on his spiritual journey, his parents were weeping and crying and mourning. And Ajahn Sujato said, we don't need to rationalize that or try and explain it too much. It's just parents have attachment and love for their children, and when they leave, it's painful. And we can just hold that as one's going forth. We can just hold that and allow for that and sit with that and appreciate that and bring that into, it's like, yes, and we still go forth knowing with confidence that this is a beautiful way to repay the kindness of our parents, both in this life, through our own internal progression. Directly, they will benefit this life for sure, and long-term all the way to awakening.